Alright guys, welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Yesterday we looked at the Bears game. We're starting to go over the schedule and each individual matchup that the Detroit Lions will be facing this year. Kind of going over them in order, talking about what happened last year, some additions and subtractions that each team has faced, and kind of what to expect going into each game, at least based on my opinion as a Lions fan. But before we get into it, if you have not seen that Bears video and you don't want the ending spoiled for you, I suggest you go back and watch it because I will be going over the end result of the game, later in the video when I reveal the Lions' overall record. Also, if you are new to the channel and are, enjoying the content, consider liking the video, subscribe to the channel, and sharing it with a Lions/NFL fan. It means a lot to me, everybody that subscribes and likes and chooses to watch my content. It just makes my day. It means a lot to me, and I appreciate everybody that does that. But with that being said, let's get into the Packers video. So the Lions in week 2 traveled to Green Bay to face the Green Bay Packers. I think that this was a very lucky thing for the Detroit Lions. Obviously, you always want to play at Lambeau Field early in the year before it gets super cold and frigid. When it gets to December and January, that's when, well, not December, January. When it gets to November and December, it starts snowing, it starts getting very cold in Lambeau, and that makes it a very difficult place to play. I think that's one of the reasons that, Lambeau is considered one of the tougher places to play is because of that cold temperature. The Packers are used to it. The Packers are good at playing in the cold and the snow, but a lot of teams aren't, and, those teams include the Detroit Lions. So last year at Lambeau Field, the Lions led for all 60 minutes of the game. The Lions did not trail for a single second in that game and still ended up losing on a last-second field goal. I think that the Lions were the better team in that game. They outperformed the Packers. They outplayed the Packers for all 60 minutes of the game, and the Packers still found a way, were still lucked through that game and found a way to win. The officiating from the referees in this game was absolutely horrible. I know the Lions are very unlucky. They get called on a lot of very bad calls. And I'm going to try in this series not to, blame the refs too much, but this was the game. This was a game, at least in the Detroit Lions season, that the officiating determined the outcome of the game. You could say the Lions should have scored on some of the drives and put the game away early. And I agree. I think the Lions should have scored on some of those drives. I think they should have put up touchdowns instead of field goals. But that doesn't change the fact that the Lions had a chance to win the game late in the fourth quarter, and the officiating was horrible and took that Lions chance away. Whether it was the two hands to the face calls by Trey Flowers that shouldn't have happened because he never touched the face mask, or, the unnecessary roughness on Tracy Walker when he was clearly trying to play the ball and catch it. The officiating was horrible in that game. There was a lot of blown calls. There was a lot of bad things that went against the Detroit Lions. And it's unacceptable as a professional referee that you can't call a fair game. I think that was ridiculous. I think that, the referees absolutely screwed the Lions over. And I think that if they don't, the Lions win that game, they go to the top of the division, and maybe our season turns out differently with that momentum heading into, week 6. Some key additions to the Detroit Lions this offseason, or not some, okay, well, so yesterday we just started with key additions. I'm going to start with key losses today. That way we can talk about how they were replaced a little bit easier, make it flow better. And I'm trying to add a few different names each time for the Detroit Lions, so it's not the same names over and over and over again. But the key losses for the Detroit Lions were obviously Darius Slay. This was one of our biggest losses. Devon Kennard, I forgot to mention yesterday, but this was one of our big losses. He was a captain for us last year. He played very well. He led the team in sacks, and the Lions decided to release him to save cap space and get a little bit of money back. Damon Harrison is another guy that we lost. Wasn't playing well last year anyway, but was a starter for us, and I wanted to mention that. And then Rick Wagner was our starting tackle last year, and we let him go to save some cap space so we could sign other people. For the Green Bay Packers, they lost Blake Martinez, their starting linebacker last year, who I think is not a very good linebacker. He's, a pretty good run supporter. He gets a lot of tackles, but he's not very good in coverage. He doesn't force turnovers. He doesn't provide a lot of big plays, and I just don't. I think he's a very overrated linebacker, which is why the Packers let him go. And I think that this was a pretty good move by them. They lost Brian Bulaga, a tackle, but I think they replaced him with Rick Wagner. I don't think Rick Wagner is quite as good, but I think that he'll be a serviceable replacement. And then Geronimo Allison was a wide receiver that they lost. Obviously, they're struggling at wide receiver. A lot of Packers fans wanted them to go wide receiver in the draft. That didn't happen, and they also let go a 6'3", big body jump ball kind of wide receiver, and Geronimo Allison, who ended up actually going to the Detroit Lions. So I think that, we lost a lot of talent, but I think we were able to replace it. But I think that's very similar to the Green Bay Packers, excluding wide receiver. I think they replaced Blake Martinez very well. I think they replaced Brian Bulaga very well. Some of the key additions for the Detroit Lions were obviously Trufant and Jeff Okudah. They're going to be our starting cornerbacks, and I think that they're going to be very good at that. Danny Shelton, who was a acquisition from the New England Patriots. Duron Harmon, who was a acquisition from the New England Patriots. So I think Shelton will help replace Snacks. I think Trufant Okudah will help replace Darius Slay. I think that, we brought in Big V, who I think will help replace Rick Wagner. And then we brought in Julian Okwara, who I think will take over that Devon Kennard role. I think he will play it very similarly. I think he will have very similar production because they are very, very similar players. The only difference is Julian Okwara is actually better in covers than Devon Kennard is. So I would expect him to actually have very similar production to what Devon Kennard did last year. I would expect him to have a very good rookie season. And I think the Lions did a very good job replacing the guys that they lost. They had a lot of cap space to do that, and I think that helped them. I think they used a lot of the cap space well. I think they had some pretty good contracts. They might have, I think they overpaid for Big V, but I don't think it was a horrible signing. I just think the contract was a little iffy. Some key players that the Packers brought in were Devin Funchess. So they did bring in a wide receiver, but he's not really a huge playmaker. He's never really been an elite wide receiver in the NFL. He's a good wide receiver, too. I think that he'll be matched up with an Okudah. I think Okudah will probably take him on, or Desmond Trufant, whoever's on that side of the field. And I don't think that he will give the Lions a lot of trouble in the secondary. B.J. Goodson was a linebacker that they signed, as well as Christian Kirksey. Kirksey is a very good linebacker. I actually really like him as a football player. The only problem is he can't seem to stay on the field. But as it is week 2, I wouldn't expect him to be injured by week 2. I think that he'll still be on the field. I think he'll still be playing for the Green Bay Packers. And I think that he will be an upgrade over Blake Martinez, actually. And then obviously Rick Wagner, who we lost, went to the Green Bay Packers as a replacement for Brian Bulaga. So he was a good replacement. I don't think he's as good as Bulaga. I think he's overrated. I don't think he's a very good tackle in the NFL, but I think that he'll be okay for the Green Bay Packers and what they need him to do. Overall, I think the Lions had better acquisitions. I think they had, I think they did a better job replacing some of the talent and getting new talent and better talent into the, into the program than the Packers did. But the Packers obviously already were better than the Lions to start the offseason. Or at least their record showed that they were. I don't know if they were actually a better franchise or a better football team, but their record showed that they were much better than the Detroit Lions. One of the things I actually forgot to mention when I was talking about the matchup is players that weren't actually in the game were Devontae Adams and Darnell Savage. The Lions were actually pretty healthy in that game. They had a couple questionable guys, but I believe almost every impact player ended up playing for the Detroit Lions in that game. I don't know how much of a difference they would have made, maybe a little bit, but they both played in week 17 against the Lions, and it was a very similar result. So I still think the game would have been very close. I still think it would have come down to the final drive for the Green Bay Packers to win the game. And I don't think that the outcome would have been super different with them in the game. Something I want to look at now that I didn't do yesterday was kind of position battle, kind of comparing each position to the position on the other team, and whether one is better than the other, or, just kind of comparing it. So first we got quarterbacks. I'm actually going to give the edge to the Detroit Lions here. I think Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback career-wise. I think that he's going to be a Hall of Famer, first ballot. He's a very, very talented guy, but in the last couple of years, he's not the same Aaron Rodgers that was the MVP in 2014 or 15. He was not the same Aaron Rodgers that throws for 5,000 yards and a ton of touchdowns. He hasn't really been the same since that collarbone injury, and Matthew Stafford last year played at an elite level, and I think actually got better weapons this offseason. So I think next year that Matthew Stafford will be the best quarterback in the NFC North. I think he will beat out Aaron Rodgers. And for these rankings, I'm going to go off of the 2020 season. I'm not going to go off careers. I'm not going to go off, accomplishments. I'm just going to go off what I think they will be in the 2020 season. And in the 2020 season, I think Matthew Stafford will outperform Aaron Rodgers as he was on pace to do last season. Um, the running back room, I think the Lions have a better running back room. I think Aaron Jones is the best running back in this game. I think he will be the best running back, but I don't think that the talent behind him is what the Detroit Lions have. Obviously, Kerryon Johnson and Aaron Jones are both very good running backs. But behind Aaron Jones, you have A.J. Dillon and some power back that I can't remember who's pretty good. But behind, Kerryon Johnson, you have DeAndre Swift, who should have gone in the first round as a running back, who's better than A.J. Dillon. And then you have Bo Scarborough, who's your power back, your big body guy, who I think is very similar to Jamal Williams, the power back that I mentioned. I just remembered his name. But I think the Lions have a better running back room than the Green Bay Packers. I think that they will have a better rotation, and I think that the production will stay the same with that rotation. I just don't think the Packers have the same talent in the running back room as the Detroit Lions. The offensive line I will give to the Packers, more for the reason that they have an amazing left tackle, they have a serviceable right tackle. Their line is proven. We know what they're gonna get most of the time. And the Detroit Lions have a lot of question marks at the offensive line. 3 of our starting 5, we don't even know who's gonna start there for sure. And I just think that they're unproven. I think that obviously after week 1, if they play well, I think that this could be flipped. But as of right now, just because of the inexperience and, the fact that we haven't actually seen the offensive line play for the Lions, I will give this to the Packers. Wide receivers, this is 100% the Lions. We have Kenny Golladay, we have Marvin Jones, we have Geronimo Allison, we have Danny Amendola, Quintez Cephas, Marvin Hall. The weapons just keep coming for Matthew Stafford, guys that he can get the ball to, and they're going to make plays. Aaron Rodgers obviously has Devontae Adams, who I would argue is the best receiver in the NFC North. But behind him, they don't have the talent of a Marvin Jones. They don't have the talent of even Geronimo Allison, really. You could say Devin Funchess is good, but I would take Marvin Jones over Devin Funchess. They don't have the slot receiver in Danny Amendola. They don't have the depth that the Lions have, and I think the depth at that position will give the Lions the slight edge over the Packers. Going on to tight end, I think the Lions have a better tight end group. Obviously, the Packers drafted one in the 3rd round, but I think they said they're going to move him to fullback. They just let go of Jimmy Graham. And the Lions have T.J. Hockenson, who I think will have a great bounce-back season. Jesse James, a proven veteran in the NFL. They have guys that can produce for the Lions and are, Jesse James is proven. T.J. Hockenson has so much upside. And I think that he will have a very big bounce-back season and help the Lions. I think he'll be a very good receiver and blocker for the Lions. So I'll give this to tight end. Pass rush, I will give to the Packers. They had a much better pass rush than us last season. With the Smith brothers, Za'Darius and Preston, they were monsters last year, and I wouldn't expect their production to drop too much. They have a pretty good defensive line, and the Lions didn't last year. They have Trey Flowers, they have Danny Shelton, they have Romeo Okwara, Julian Okwara, Deshaun Hand. They have a lot of good players, but they didn't show last year that they could do it. They could get the job done, and until they prove that, I will give it to the proven guys who had sacks last season, who produced at a high level last season over the Detroit Lions, who have talent but haven't proven that they can put that talent to good use. So I give that to the Packers. Cornerbacks, I will say that the Lions have a better cornerback room. Jaire Alexander, I think, is better than Trufant and Okudah at this point. Obviously, we haven't seen either of them play with the Lions, but I would expect them both to play at a high level. But, Jaire Alexander is one of the best young cornerbacks in the game. I think that he's a very good player. He's a player that you don't want to test a whole lot because he will make you pay. He will, get a turnover. He will get an interception on you if you test him too many times. And I think Okudah can turn into that, and I think Trufant, is a very good cornerback. But I think that at this point in his career, Jaire Alexander is better than Desmond Trufant, and we just don't know Jeff Okudah yet. So I think the top end of that, it goes to the Packers, but I think as far as depth goes, Kevin King is okay, but I would take Jeff Okudah at this point over Kevin King. Justin Coleman is one of the better slot corners in the league. Amani Oruwariye is a very good depth corner. Roberts is a very good depth corner. D Ford, or not D Ford, Mike Ford and D Virgin are, pretty good. D Ford, I keep saying D Ford. Michael Ford can come in and be an okay depth guy. D Virgin can contribute on special teams. And I just think overall the room is much, much better than what the Packers have. And then safety, I will give to the Packers. I think both have a very good young safety. The Detroit Lions have Tracy Walker, who is very good, and the Green Bay Packers have Darnell Savage, who was a first-round pick last year, who was very efficient and very good for the Packers. Both of them have good veterans. The Lions have Duron Harmon, and the Packers have Adrian Amos. So I think that those two are pretty similar, pretty comparable. I think they're almost dead even. But the Lions, they have Will Harris. I don't know who the Packers' third safety is, but I think Adrian Amos is better than Duron Harmon. But Duron Harmon also hasn't played a whole lot. So I think this is one of the closest positions. I think this could even be considered a tie. But I will give the slight edge to the Packers because because Darnell Savage gets more turnovers. He got more interceptions than Tracy Walker. And I think that he is slightly better than Tracy Walker. And I think that Adrian Amos is slightly better than Duron Harmon. Not that either of those two are bad. I think that they're both good. I think that the safety position is going to be a big step up next year for the Lions. But I will give this to the Packers. So overall, the Lions win 5-3 on the position battles. I do think the Lions will win this game. I think they were the better team, and I think they got even better in free agency, and the Packers stayed pretty similar, if not even getting worse. So I think the final score will be 24-21. I think this will come down to the wire again. I think that Matt Prater will kick a game-winning field goal, whether it's on the last play of the game or it's with a couple seconds left and the Packers just don't have enough time to get down the field and tie it back up. But I do think the Detroit Lions will win this. I think they were the better team last year. I think they are the better team on paper this year. And that's kind of my opinion. So the Lions will move to 2-0. They will start fast in this season. They will, get 2 division wins very early in the season. And before anybody comments, no, I'm not having the Lions go 16-0, but I genuinely believe that they can win both of these first games. I think it's very possible. I think they should have won a lot more games last year, and especially against division rivals, I think they should have won more games. But that is my opinion. I think that the Lions will start 2-0. They will start fast. They will take first place in the NFC North. And as we go through, we will see if the Lions can hold that first place in the NFC North. But that is all I got for today. The Lions are 2-0. Things are looking good in Detroit. And the Lions are looking like a very dangerous team for anybody to come play. But that's all I got for today. If there's Lions news before tomorrow, obviously I will get back and make a video. If not, I will see you guys tomorrow with the prediction for the Cardinals game, and whether I think the Lions can win that or not. But if there's no Lions news, I will see you guys tomorrow. That is all I have for today. I appreciate everybody that supports me. If you want to subscribe, if you want to like the video, share it with somebody, if you're enjoying it. That means a lot to me, and I appreciate everybody that does so. But with that being said, that is all I have for right now. I will see everybody later. Bye.